Hey everyone, welcome back to VoxQueue. Today we've got some wild ones. Grab a drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Tonight's episode is about a type of person everybody eventually runs into. The one who thinks confidence can replace truth. The kind who steals credit, steals money, steals space, and then looks offended when somebody finally stops them. And the reason these stories hit so hard is because every single one of these people really thought they had the moment under control, right up until the proof showed up. The first one starts in an office, which already tells you enough. Fluorescent lights, fake teamwork, polite emails with sharp little knives hidden in them, and one manager who got way too comfortable standing next to other people's work and calling it leadership. Nadia had spent almost 3 weeks rebuilding a client strategy deck that was an absolute disaster when it landed in her lap. The numbers were messy. The recommendations contradicted each other, and half the material looked like it had been dragged over from old files nobody had updated in months. The kind of project everybody knew was bad, but nobody wanted to own, because the second it failed, blame would start raining from the ceiling. So Nadia did what capable people always end up doing in places like that. She quietly fixed it. She stayed late. She reworked the charts. She rewrote the executive summary. She cleaned up the logic between the recommendations and the data, so it would stop sounding like 5 different people had built it without ever speaking to each other. She caught 2 errors that would have made the company look ridiculous in front of the client, and she did most of it while her manager Brent drifted in and out with vague little comments like, "Let's sharpen the narrative," or "Make it feel more strategic," which is corporate language for, "I have nothing useful to add, but I still want credit for being nearby." And this is where it gets worse. The closer they got to the review meeting, the more Brent started speaking about the deck like it was his. Not directly at first, just little phrases. "I've been reworking the framing. I wanted to tighten the story. I've been adjusting the recommendations." All that slippery language people use when they want ownership without accountability. Nadia noticed it. The rest of the team noticed it too. But office politics has this nasty habit of training everybody to see the obvious and keep quiet about it. So Nadia went into the meeting mostly hoping he would at least be normal, not even generous, just normal. Mention the team, say she led the revisions, act like a functioning adult. The conference room was freezing in that over-air-conditioned way corporate buildings always are. Glass walls, projector humming, coffee cups scattered around the table. The client was joining remotely, so their faces were already lined up in little boxes on the screen when Brent stood at the front like he was about to deliver a keynote. Then he opened his mouth and said, "I spent a lot of time reworking this deck because I felt we needed a stronger strategic angle." No hesitation, no team acknowledgement, nothing. Just pure theft in a button-down shirt. Nadia felt that awful split-second freeze where your body goes still before your brain catches up. Her hands felt cold. Her face got hot. She looked around the table and caught those tiny reactions people make when they know something wrong just happened but don't want to be the first one to say it. One coworker stopped typing. Another suddenly became very interested in their laptop. A senior analyst blinked and leaned back, like even he couldn't believe Brent had gone that far, that openly. Brent kept going. He said, "These recommendations came together after I restructured the entire narrative." Nadia finally said, "Actually, I rebuilt most of that file on Tuesday and Wednesday." The room went dead quiet. Not a normal pause either, the heavy kind where everybody instantly realizes there are now 2 versions of reality fighting for oxygen in the same room. Brent gave this fake laugh, the kind people use when they think confidence will smother facts. He said, "Right, with my direction." That should have been the end, but it wasn't. Brent moved on to another slide and started explaining one of Nadia's exact phrasing choices like it had come to him in a flash of managerial brilliance. And at that point, something in her shifted. She stopped trying to decide how to handle it emotionally and started thinking about it practically. She opened the live file on her laptop. Not even because she planned some dramatic exposure moment, she just wanted to look at the notes. But when she clicked into the file details, she saw it sitting there. Version history. Every edit, every timestamp, every name. The screen glow reflected off her face while her anger settled into something cleaner, calmer, more dangerous. She raised a hand slightly and said, "Can we pause for a second?" Brent looked annoyed now, not nervous yet, just irritated that the person he was speaking over was still speaking. "What is it, Nadia?" She turned her laptop toward the main display and said, "Since we're talking about who reworked the deck, the version history shows the file was edited almost entirely by me between Tuesday night and early Thursday morning. It also shows the charts, summary, and recommendations were created under my account." And just like that, the whole room changed. A senior director said, "Can you scroll?" So she scrolled. Her name, again, and again, and again. Charts inserted by Nadia. Slides rewritten by Nadia. Comments resolved by Nadia. Entire sections built by Nadia. Brent's name appeared 3 times. Once for changing a title, once for adding a comma, and once for typing "Great work, team" in the comments section, like a man trying to leave fingerprints on a building he didn't construct. Nobody said anything for a second. The silence got heavy in the room. You could actually feel it landing on people. Then Brent, because some people cannot stop digging once they're caught, said, "Version history doesn't always reflect leadership input." That sentence alone deserved to be framed in a museum of shamelessness. But the senior director looked at him and asked, very calmly, "Did you say a minute ago that you personally reworked the deck?" That's when Brent's face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. The confidence flickered. And here's what they didn't expect. Nadia clicked into the comments. Brent had left a note at 10:08 in the morning asking if they should add a summary to a section Nadia had written the night before. Another comment at 10:11 suggested adding a cost breakdown that was already sitting in the appendix. Another at 10:15 said the framing needed to be stronger, even though the exact framing line he had just bragged about in the meeting was copied almost word for word from Nadia's draft. He wasn't leading anything. He was orbiting completed work and pretending the gravity belonged to him. Then one of the client contacts spoke up through the screen and said, "For accuracy, I'd prefer recognition goes to the person who actually prepared the material." That line hit harder than yelling could have, because it was clean, it was public, and it left Brent nowhere to hide. After the meeting, co-workers drifted out in that weird corporate stampede where everyone leaves quickly while pretending nothing major just happened. 2 people quietly stopped Nadia by the door and said she had done the right thing. One admitted Brent had a habit of claiming wins upward and distributing blame downward whenever things went badly. By that afternoon, the senior director had asked Nadia to forward the version history and supporting drafts. By the end of the week, Brent's responsibilities started getting redistributed, which is corporate language for "we don't trust you anymore, but we still want to take the scenic route to consequences." And honestly, that may have been worse for him, because the moment Nadia remembered most wasn't even what she said. It was Brent's face when the proof hit the screen. That exact second where a person realizes the quiet one they underestimated didn't just notice everything, she documented it. That should have been the end of the night, but it gets worse, because the second story is about fake friendship, which somehow manages to be even uglier than workplace theft. At least in the office, you expect some ambition and nonsense. Betrayal in a friend group is different. It shows up smiling. It says "love you" while skimming off the relationship like it's a subscription service. Maya had been friends with Tiana for about 6 years, long enough to have history, long enough to skip formalities. They had done birthdays, road trips, long calls, messy conversations, all of it. They were part of a larger friend group, and when one of their close friends, Serena, bought her first house, everyone agreed to chip in for one larger housewarming gift instead of bringing a pile of random candles and decorative bowls no one actually wanted. Tiana volunteered to collect the money. Already suspicious. The person who gets too eager to organize the money is either genuinely efficient or the beginning of a story like this. Everybody sent their share. Maya sent hers quickly. 2 others sent theirs that same day. Tiana kept talking about how she was putting something really nice together and made it sound like she was basically curating the perfect group surprise. Then the housewarming party happened. Warm lights, music low in the background, people walking around with drinks, pretending they weren't mentally evaluating Serena's furniture choices. Normal friend group energy. But when Maya asked Tiana where the group gift was, Tiana gave this weird little answer. "Oh, I ended up handling something smaller. It was more practical." Smaller? That made no sense. 7 people had contributed. Maya didn't want to make it awkward in Serena's house, so she let it go for the moment. But later, when Serena started opening gifts, there was no major group present, no big item, no meaningful surprise, just a cheap little kitchen set in a gift bag with no card. And that sinking feeling hit Maya immediately, because there's embarrassed, and then there's that specific embarrassment of realizing somebody may have used your contribution and still let you stand there looking cheap. After the party, Maya texted Tiana and asked what happened to the money everybody had sent. Tiana replied, "I had extra expenses this month. I was going to replace it before the party, but couldn't. It's not that serious." Not that serious? That sentence by itself would make my blood pressure file a complaint. Maya was stunned, not just because of the money, but because of how casual Tiana was. She wasn't confessing with shame, she was explaining with entitlement. Like the group fund had been a temporary emergency account she was naturally allowed to tap into. Maya brought it up privately with 2 other friends who had contributed, and that's when the story got even nastier. One had been told the gift shipment got delayed. Another had been told Maya herself was covering a larger share later. So now it wasn't one lie, it was several, personalized lies, the kind told by somebody who assumes nobody will compare notes. And this is where it gets worse. When Maya pushed back, Tiana changed tactics completely. She sent this long, dramatic message about how real friendship isn't transactional, and how she had been overwhelmed and stressed, and didn't appreciate being interrogated over a housewarming gift. Classic move. Take the thing, get caught, then act wounded that anyone noticed. And for a second, it almost worked, because decent people hate being framed as petty, especially in a friend group. Nobody wants to become the person making drama. But then, Serena called Maya the next day and asked a question that changed everything. She said, "Can I ask you something? Tiana told me only she paid for that kitchen set. Did everyone else actually send money?" There it was. Maya opened her payment app and found the screenshot instantly. Another friend sent theirs too. Then another. Same day, same amount, same note attached. For Serena's housewarming. 3 glowing screens. 3 receipts. 0 wiggle room. Serena went quiet for a few seconds, then said, "Okay." Then she lied to me too. That should have been the end, but Tiana still kept pushing. Serena decided to clear it up at brunch the following weekend, with most of the group there. Not a screaming ambush, not some dramatic confrontation with napkins flying through the air, just one of those sharp, controlled public conversations that can be even more brutal because nobody can hide behind chaos. Bright restaurant, weekend crowd, clinking glasses. Tiana showed up smiling like it was a normal brunch and started talking about some guy she'd been seeing. Then Serena put her menu down and said, "Before we order, I want to clear something up. You told me you bought my housewarming gift yourself." Tiana paused. You could almost hear the gears shifting in her head. She said, "Well, I coordinated it." Serena said, "That's not what I asked." And suddenly, the whole table got very still. Nobody touched their drinks. Nobody opened the menu again. Everybody understood exactly what was happening. Maya sent the payment screenshots into the group chat right there at the table. Transfer confirmation, date, amount, notes. Then Serena asked, "And you also told Maya the money was replaced, was it?" Tiana started doing that caught person stutter where every sentence begins with, and ends in nowhere. "I was going to, you guys are making this into." Then Serena cut right through it and said, "No, you made this into theft." "We're just being specific."
Beautiful line. Surgical. Tiana tried a last little sympathy performance after that. Not full tears, just that glossy-eyed, shaky voice version meant to make everybody feel cruel for continuing. But once a group sees the pattern, it's over. The mask cracks all at once, and suddenly everybody starts remembering other weird moments they had brushed aside. One friend quietly said Tiana had done something similar with a dinner deposit the year before. And that was it. Game over. By evening, Tiana had sent the money back. Not with a real apology, of course. People like that almost never apologize cleanly. They refund with attitude. The transfer note was something passive-aggressive, basically saying she hoped everyone felt better now. Which they did, actually. But by then, it was not about the money anymore. It was about access, trust. How many times she had probably done this on a smaller scale and survived because nobody wanted to compare notes. The friend group didn't explode. It just rearranged itself around the truth. And that's a colder consequence than one giant fight. Fewer invites, slower replies, plans happening somewhere else. No dramatic speech, just the social doors quietly closing. Maya said the hardest part was realizing the friendship had probably been one-sided for a while. She had trusted the length of the relationship more than the quality of the behavior. And that's one of those lessons that hurts in a very adult way. Because some people think history is a shield. They think if they've known you long enough, they can skim a little from your trust and call it confusion. But then the proof shows up. And suddenly, the whole room starts doing math. That should have been the last betrayal for tonight. But no, the third story gets meaner, because now we're in public, and public lies are a whole different beast. Janelle ran a small food stand on weekends at local events, farmers markets, street fairs, outdoor concerts, the kind of setup where the hours are long, the margins are thin, and one loud accusation at the wrong time can ruin your whole day. She stayed organized because she had to. Permits, receipts, vendor approvals, inspection copies, the whole thing. When you run a small business, proof isn't optional. It's survival. One Saturday night, the event was packed. Lights from nearby booths were bouncing off the metal counters. Steam was rolling up from the griddle. The line was long, and half the crowd had that hungry, impatient look, where people start acting like waiting 6 minutes for food is a violation of their human rights. Then, Darren stepped up. And you know how some people arrive already looking like they're about to create a problem? That was him. Too loud, too casual, too comfortable talking over people. He placed a small order right as Janelle was calling out the name on a much larger prepaid family tray for another customer named Ava. The tray was clearly labeled, big bag, stapled receipt, name written in thick marker. Janelle set it on the pickup side and called, "Ava, large combo tray." Darren stepped forward immediately and grabbed it. Janelle said, "Sir, that one's not yours." He kept walking. So she came around the side of the stand and said it louder. "That order is prepaid for someone else." And this man actually turned, looked at the label, and said, "No, you handed it to me." That logic is so stupid, it almost deserves research funding. Janelle reached for the bag, and Darren pulled it back like she was the one trying to steal from him. Now the crowd was watching. People in line turned fully toward them. A couple phones came up. You could feel the whole atmosphere shift from ordinary event noise into live drama. Janelle said, "Your order was 1 sandwich and fries. This is a family tray." And Darren, loud enough for the line to hear, said, "Then maybe you should learn how to do your job." There it was. Public disrespect. Fast, clean, intentional. He wasn't confused. He was trying to put her on the defensive in front of an audience. Then Ava walked up. She looked at Janelle, then Darren, then the bag in his hand and said, "That's my order." Darren laughed. Actually laughed. Then he said, "You people need to get on the same page." That phrase alone told everybody what kind of person he was. Janelle pointed to the receipt attached to the bag. Ava pulled up her confirmation on her phone. Darren still refused to hand it back. Instead, he started turning to the crowd and talking like he was the victim. "She handed it to me, and now she's changing the story because they messed up."
That's the kind of liar who depends on momentum. They speak quickly, loudly, and with just enough fake outrage that bystanders hesitate long enough for the lie to breathe. And for a second, it almost worked. A couple people in line started murmuring. One asked if she had mixed up the orders. Another said maybe she should just remake it and move on. That's the ugly part of public conflict. People will pressure the organized person to eat the cost just because the shameless person is louder. But Janelle didn't fold. She looked straight at Darren and said, "Give the bag back now, or I'm calling event security." And this man, because he somehow still believed he was winning, tried to escalate harder. He said, "Go ahead. I don't even think you're supposed to be operating here. Bet your paperwork isn't legal." Now he wasn't just stealing. He was trying to damage her business in front of a live crowd. And here's what they didn't expect. Janelle reached under the counter and pulled out a binder. Every permit, every vendor approval, every payment receipt, every inspection copy, every event pass, all in clear plastic sleeves. She opened it, flipped once, and held up the current event permit. Booth 18. Approved vendor. Date. Seal. Health clearance included. Then she said, very calmly, "Actually, my permit is current. Booth 18. Approved vendor. Do you want me to keep going?" The crowd shifted instantly. You can always feel when a public narrative flips. It's physical. People who were leaning toward doubt suddenly lean toward certainty. Eyes move from the accused to the accuser. A security volunteer came over and asked what was happening. Ava held up her phone confirmation. Janelle pointed to the labeled bag. Security asked Darren for his receipt. He didn't have one, because of course he didn't. That's when the confidence went out of his face. The smirk died. The whole performance started collapsing under its own weight. Security radioed the event coordinator, who recognized Janelle immediately and confirmed over the radio that she had been an approved vendor all season with no issues. Then Ava, somehow still calm through all of this, said, "So he tried to steal my prepaid order and then accuse her of operating illegally?" That line landed hard, because once it was said plainly, there was nothing left to debate. Darren tried one last escape route and muttered, "I was just confused." No, absolutely not. There is a massive difference between confusion and walking away with someone else's clearly labeled order while insulting the vendor who stops you. Security took the bag from him and handed it back to Ava. Then they escorted Darren away from the booth while the whole line watched in silence. And that silence mattered, because it wasn't neutral anymore. It was judgment, the social kind, the kind that says everybody in this space now understands exactly what you were doing. After he was removed, customers started being nicer to Janelle almost on purpose. One woman said she had handled it professionally. Somebody tipped extra. Another customer said small business owners deal with too many people who think volume can replace honesty. Later, the event coordinator stopped by and told Janelle she had done exactly the right thing by keeping her records close and refusing to absorb the loss. That's another thing entitled people misunderstand. They mistake kindness for weakness. They assume that if they make enough noise in public, somebody who is just trying to keep the peace will surrender to avoid a scene. But once the permit record showed up, the whole script flipped. He wasn't a frustrated customer anymore. He was what he had been from the beginning, a guy trying to take something he didn't pay for and bully his way through the consequences. And that's what connects all three stories tonight. Brent thought rank would beat documentation. Tiana thought friendship history would beat accountability. Darren thought volume would beat evidence. Same disease, different symptoms. People like that rely on three things: your discomfort, the group's hesitation, and the hope that proof either doesn't exist or won't be used. That's the real reason these exposure moments feel so satisfying, not because somebody gets embarrassed, but because the performance dies in public. The loud manager turns into a mediocre thief with a title. The smiling best friend turns into a user with a story problem. The outraged customer turns into a guy trying to steal dinner with an audience. And maybe that's the lesson. A lot of manipulative people aren't actually brave. They just move early in environments where decent people hesitate.
Offices, friend groups, public businesses. Places where politeness, trust, or chaos make truth feel inconvenient. But receipts don't care about charisma. Files don't care about rank. Records don't care who talks the loudest. That's why the most dangerous person in the room usually isn't the one performing. It's the quiet one with proof. So tell me, which one got you the most? The boss who thought nobody would check the file? The friend who treated group money like her emergency fund? Or the customer who tried to steal an order and then questioned the vendor's paperwork when he got caught? Because every single one of them had the same fatal problem. They thought the moment belonged to them, until it didn't. And the craziest part is, people like this almost never think they're one screenshot away from losing control of the whole story. So if you want more receipts, more fallout, and more moments that should have stayed hidden but didn't, stay right here, because the next one gets even messier.